For nearly 4 centuries, the Taj Mahal has stood on the banks of the Yamuna River, first as one grieving emperor's private act of mourning, and later as one of the most recognized buildings on Earth. Its ivory domes are known worldwide as a symbol of love, but the marble has also witnessed a bitter succession war, a father's imprisonment by his own son, colonial plunder, 2 world conflicts, and a modern battle against pollution and political controversy. The story of this monument spans nearly 400 years of history, from its origins in a royal marriage and a devastating death in childbirth to its survival through empire, occupation, and environmental crisis. In this journey, we will explore the Taj Mahal's construction, its most persistent legends, its decline and rediscovery, and its ongoing fight for survival, revealing how it evolved from a private act of grief into a global icon that is cherished, studied, and contested in equal measure. The story of the Taj Mahal begins not with an emperor, but with a teenage prince and a merchant's daughter. Around 1607, the young Prince Khurram, later crowned Emperor Shah Jahan, is said to have first seen Arjumand Banu Begum selling silken beads in the royal bazaar at Agra. He pursued her for 5 years before their marriage in 1612, after which she was given the title Mumtaz Mahal, usually translated as Chosen One of the Palace or Jewel of the Palace. Mumtaz Mahal was far more than a royal consort. Court chroniclers describe her as Shah Jahan's closest companion and confidant, entrusted with the imperial seal and consulted on matters of state. She accompanied her husband even on military campaigns, traveling with the court deep into hostile territory while pregnant. Over 19 years of marriage, she bore him 14 children. In 1631, while the imperial court was on campaign in the Deccan, Mumtaz Mahal died in the city of Burhanpur while giving birth to her 14th child, a daughter named Gauhara Begum. Shah Jahan was reportedly inconsolable. The court historian Abd al-Hamid Lahori recorded that the emperor had only 20 gray hairs in his beard before her death, and many more afterward. The imperial court was plunged into 2 years of official mourning, during which music and celebration were forbidden. Popular tradition holds that Mumtaz Mahal extracted a deathbed promise from her husband to build her the most beautiful tomb the world had ever seen. Historians caution that this romantic detail cannot be verified in the contemporary court records, and it may be a later embellishment of the story. What is documented is that Shah Jahan began planning a mausoleum almost immediately, and within about 6 months, her body was moved from Burhanpur to Agra to be interred at a temporary grave on the bank of the Yamuna River, the very site chosen for the monument that would become the Taj Mahal. The proposal itself reflected more than personal grief. Shah Jahan had come to power in 1628, presiding over an empire at the height of its wealth, and Mughal rulers had long used monumental architecture to project both piety and dominance. His own father, Jahangir, and grandfather, Akbar, had each commissioned grand tombs and palaces of their own. What set Shah Jahan's plan apart was its scale of ambition. Not a single structure, but an entire complex, gateway, garden, mosque, and mausoleum, conceived from the outset as one unified statement, dedicated to a single woman, and built almost entirely in gleaming white marble at a time when red sandstone remained the standard material of Mughal building. The very name of the monument reflects this compressed history. Taj Mahal is generally understood as a shortened, Persian-influenced form of Mumtaz Mahal's own title, roughly crown of the palace, turning the building itself into a permanent extension of her name. Agra was a natural choice of location. It had served as a Mughal capital for generations, sat on a major trade and pilgrimage route along the Yamuna, and already held the tombs and gardens of earlier emperors nearby, giving Shah Jahan a stage on which his own monument could be seen to surpass everything that had come before it. Construction began around 1632 on a plot of land on the southern bank of the Yamuna, reportedly acquired from the Raja of Amber in exchange for other properties. Shah Jahan's ambitions were extraordinary from the outset. The tomb was to be built entirely of white marble, perfectly symmetrical, decorated with the finest inlay work available anywhere in the empire, and set within a garden meant to evoke paradise on earth. The project drew on the talents of the entire Mughal world. The chief architect is generally identified as Ustad Ahmad Lahori, an architect of Persian descent working at the Mughal court, though surviving records also credit supervisors such as Mir Abdul Karim and Makramat Khan, and attribute individual elements, the dome, the calligraphy, the stone inlay, to different master craftsmen. Historians continue to debate exactly how credit for the overall design should be divided, since Mughal building projects were typically the product of a supervising council rather than a single architect working alone. More than 20,000 workers were employed over roughly 2 decades, drawn from across India, Persia, and Central Asia: masons, stonecutters, inlay specialists, calligraphers, and laborers. An estimated 1,000 elephants were used to haul building materials, including white Makrana marble, quarried some 250 miles away in Rajasthan, and semi-precious stones gathered from across the known world: lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, jade from China, turquoise, carnelian, and amethyst from Persia, Tibet, and Arabia. The core mausoleum was largely complete by around 1638 to 43, while the surrounding complex, the monumental gateway, the garden, a mosque, and its matching jawab, answer building, mirroring the mosque for visual symmetry, took another decade to finish. By most accounts, the entire complex was substantially complete by 1653, after roughly 22 years of continuous work. Contemporary sources put the cost at around 32 million rupees, an almost incalculable sum for the era, funded from the treasury of what was then one of the wealthiest empires on earth. Building on the soft soil of a riverbank presented its own engineering challenge. Rather than a conventional foundation, Mughal engineers sank a grid of deep wells into the ground beside the Yamuna, packed them with stone and lime mortar, and capped them with wooden platforms, reportedly built of ebony or salt timber, on which the mausoleum's superstructure was raised. The design relied on the wood remaining permanently waterlogged. Submerged timber, starved of oxygen, can resist decay for centuries, much as the wooden piles beneath Venice have done. It was, for its time, an ingenious solution, one that assumed the river beside it would keep flowing forever. A project of this size also created an economy of its own. Beyond the marble cutters and inlay artists, the Taj Mahal complex required brick kilns, scaffolding built from entire forests of timber, a purpose-built earthen ramp, reportedly miles long, to haul stone to the upper levels, and a constant supply chain of food, water, and housing for tens of thousands of workers and their families camped near the site. An entire settlement, later known as Taj Ganj, grew up beside the construction site to house this workforce, a reminder that behind the finished monument's serenity lay 2 decades of industrial-scale organization. What made the design so radical? Pietra dura, parchinkari, thousands of slivers of semi-precious stone inlaid into marble to form flowers and vines, cut so precisely that no gap remains between stone and setting. Calligraphy by Amanat Khan, Quranic verses inscribed in black marble inlay, with the lettering deliberately enlarged at greater heights so that every line appears the same size from ground level. A charbagh garden, a classical Mughal quartered garden of paradise, divided by long reflecting watercourses, framing the tomb rather than placing it at the literal center. A double dome structure, an inner dome shaped for the proportions of the interior chamber, and an outer dome shaped for the monument's soaring silhouette, a technique that helped the structure achieve both grandeur and acoustic balance. 4 minarets, each built slightly tilted outward from the platform, widely believed to be a deliberate precaution, so that in the event of an earthquake, the towers would fall away from the tomb rather than onto it. Even the choice of marble was calculated for effect. Makrana marble contains fine traces of mineral impurities that cause it to shift in tone with the light. Visitors and court poets alike have long described the building as glowing soft pink at dawn, brilliant white under the midday sun, and pale silver gray by moonlight, an effect the Mughals seem to have anticipated deliberately, since Shah Jahan is recorded as having sometimes viewed the monument by night. The result was a structure meant to be read almost like scripture, a building whose geometry, calligraphy, and gardens together evoked the Islamic vision of paradise, built to house the remains of a beloved wife, and eventually of the emperor himself. Few monuments have accumulated as much folklore as the Taj Mahal. The most notorious legend claims that Shah Jahan had the hands of his craftsmen severed or their eyes gouged out so that they could never build anything to rival it. The story has no basis in the surviving Mughal court chronicles, including the Badshanama, which instead record artisans being rewarded with land, wealth, and titles for their work. Both UNESCO and India's Archaeological Survey treat the tale as pure legend, but its grim drama has kept it alive for generations of visitors. A second, gentler legend concerns the so-called Black Taj Mahal. According to this story, Shah Jahan intended to build a mirror image mausoleum in black marble for himself on the opposite bank of the river, connected to the White Taj by a bridge. The tale originates with the French traveler Jean-Baptiste Tavernier, who visited Agra in 1665 and wrote that Shah Jahan had begun such a project before his overthrow. Archaeological excavations at the site, a garden called Mehtab Bagh, or Moonlight Garden, have found no foundations for a second mausoleum. The blackened stones once cited as evidence appear to be ordinary white marble discolored by time. Most historians regard the Black Taj as a romantic myth rather than an abandoned building project, though some note that the timeline is not impossible. Shah Jahan had roughly 5 years between the Taj's completion and his imprisonment, in which such a project could, in theory, have been started and quickly abandoned. A third strand of folklore involves the involvement of foreign craftsmen. Some accounts credit Italian artisans, possibly reaching the Mughal court through Jesuit missionaries, with introducing or influencing the pietra dura inlay technique, a craft with a long tradition in Florence. Mainstream historians treat this as, at most, a distant point of technical exchange rather than evidence of European authorship. The design, materials, workforce, and execution of the Taj Mahal were overwhelmingly South and Central Asian, produced by a Mughal court that had absorbed influences from across its trading networks, the way empires often do. Shah Jahan did not enjoy his monument for long as a free man. In 1657, the emperor fell seriously ill, triggering a war of succession among his 4 sons. His third son, Aurangzeb, proved the most ruthless. He defeated and killed his brothers and in 1658 seized the throne for himself. Rather than execute his father, Aurangzeb confined Shah Jahan to Agra Fort, roughly a mile from the Taj Mahal, where the deposed emperor spent the last 8 years of his life under guard in the Musamman Burj, an octagonal marble tower. According to later accounts, Shah Jahan spent his final years reading the Quran and gazing across the river at the tomb of his wife, the one uninterrupted view left to him. He is said to have been denied even basic comforts. One popular account claims repeated requests for new slippers went ignored, forcing the once wealthiest man in the world to shuffle about in tattered footwear. Shah Jahan died in January 1666 and was buried beside Mumtaz Mahal inside the mausoleum he had built for her. His cenotaph, positioned slightly off-center next to hers, is the only element in the Taj Mahal's otherwise perfect symmetry that was never part of the original plan, a quiet, unintended footnote left by a son who had never meant to make his father a permanent resident. The Taj Mahal's fortunes declined, along with those of the empire that built it. Aurangzeb died in 1707, leaving no single successor with anything close to his authority. The following decades brought repeated wars of succession, provincial governors breaking away to found their own dynasties, and a catastrophic invasion by the Persian ruler Nadir Shah, who sacked Delhi in 1739 and carried off a staggering portion of Mughal treasure, including the jewel-encrusted peacock throne on which Shah Jahan himself had once sat. The empire that had commanded 20,000 workers for over 2 decades could no longer reliably fund the upkeep of a single tomb. Without a strong imperial government to maintain it, the Taj Mahal suffered years of neglect. During the 18th century, its bejeweled interior was plundered. The precious and semi-precious stones set into its walls and silver doors were pried loose and carried off by opportunists during periods of regional instability, leaving bare pockmarks in the marble where inlay work had once been. Agra itself changed hands repeatedly during this period of turmoil, passing between Mughal loyalists, the Jat Kingdom of Bharatpur, and the Maratha Confederacy before the century was out. Each change of regional power brought further risk to unguarded monuments, and while the Taj Mahal was never seriously damaged in battle, the absence of a stable central authority meant that no one was consistently responsible for its upkeep, a stark contrast to the coordinated imperial project that had built it a century earlier. The British East India Company took control of Agra in 1803. During the Indian Rebellion of 1857, British soldiers and colonial officials reportedly chiseled precious stones and lapis lazuli directly out of the monument's walls as souvenirs, further disfiguring its surfaces. A persistent, though disputed story holds that in 1830, Governor General Lord William Bentinck considered demolishing the Taj Mahal outright and auctioning off its marble for scrap, following an earlier scheme in which marble stripped from Agra Fort had been sold or shipped to Britain. Whether or not the plan for the Taj itself ever reached a formal auction, as some popular retellings claim, historians agree that the monument was, by this period, badly deteriorated, unprotected, and treated by colonial administrators as little more than a source of raw building material. Early efforts to conserve the Taj Mahal were themselves troubled. In the 1810s and 1820s, a British officer named Lieutenant Joseph Taylor was placed in charge of conservation work at several Agra monuments, including the Taj Mahal, Agra Fort, and Akbar's tomb. But the projects were plagued by corruption and the use of substandard materials. In one case, marble intended for repairs at Akbar's tomb was reportedly diverted from the Agra Fort rather than freshly procured. By the time Lord William Bentinck became Governor General in 1828, the conservation program was widely viewed as a costly failure, and it was in this climate of neglect and financial pressure that the marble stripped from Agra Fort's imperial bath was dismantled and sold off, some of it, according to later accounts, shipped to England as gifts for the crown. By the late 19th century, the Taj Mahal itself had again fallen into serious disrepair, its gardens overgrown, its structure cracked and stained. The turning point came under Lord Curzon, British Viceroy of India from 1899 to 1905. Curzon was a vocal critic of the neglect shown toward India's historic monuments, and he ordered a sweeping restoration of the Taj Mahal complex, completed in 1908. Teams of engineers and craftsmen repaired structural damage, cleaned and polished the marble, and restored decorative details lost over the previous century. Curzon also commissioned a large ornamental lamp for the interior chamber, modeled on one he had seen in a Cairo mosque, and remodeled the gardens into the formal British-style lawns, still visible today, replacing the looser Mughal plantings with the manicured hedges and pathways expected of an English park. The restoration was, in its way, an ambiguous legacy, a genuine act of preservation carried out by the same colonial government that had allowed, and in some cases actively participated in, decades of the monument's decline. Whatever its motives, Curzon's project is widely credited with saving the Taj Mahal from the fate of slower ruin that had already overtaken many other Mughal-era buildings. The 20th century brought new threats of a very different kind. In 1942, amid fears that Japanese or German aircraft might target major Indian landmarks during the Second World War, the British colonial authorities built an elaborate scaffolding structure over the Taj Mahal's dome and covered it in bamboo matting, disguising its unmistakable silhouette as an unremarkable stack of building material. Bombers never came, but the precaution was taken seriously enough to leave the monument shrouded for the duration of the war. The tactic was repeated during the Indo-Pakistani Wars of 1965 and 1971, when India again covered the dome, this time reportedly with jute and khaki fabric as a wartime precaution. During the 1971 conflict, Indian Air Force jets flew regular patrols over Agra to protect the site, and by the war's final week, Pakistan's Air Force, badly depleted after the loss of East Pakistan, made no further attempts to strike near the city, though later observers have questioned how effective such camouflage could really have been against a target as large and well-documented as the Taj Mahal. The repeated precautions reflect just how seriously successive Indian governments treated the monument's symbolic value, worth protecting, even at the cost of disguising one of the most photographed buildings on the planet as a heap of scaffolding. Long before UNESCO or global polls, the Taj Mahal was already building an international reputation through the accounts of foreign visitors, European travelers, merchants, and diplomats who passed through Agra in the decades after its completion. Figures such as Jean-Baptiste Tavernier and the French physician François Bernier, who spent years at the Mughal court, wrote detailed, often admiring descriptions of the monument that circulated in Europe and helped establish its reputation as one of the most extraordinary buildings anywhere in the world, decades before mass tourism made it a household name. That reputation grew further in the 19th century as improved travel networks and later photography brought the Taj Mahal to wider audiences. British and European artists and early photographers documented the monument extensively, and it became a fixture of colonial-era travel writing about India, often described in the same odd terms, once reserved for the pyramids of Egypt or the ruins of Rome. This growing fame ran on a separate track from the structure's physical condition, even as the building suffered neglect and plunder through much of the 18th and 19th centuries. Its legend as an architectural wonder only continued to spread. After India gained independence in 1947, responsibility for the Taj Mahal passed to the Archaeological Survey of India, ASI, which has managed the site ever since. In the decades that followed, the monument became one of the most recognizable symbols of the new nation, an irony not lost on some observers, given that it was built by a Muslim Mughal dynasty in a country now defining its own, often contested, relationship with that history. The monument's image spread well beyond Agra in these decades. It appeared on postage stamps and currency, anchored countless tourism campaigns, and became visual shorthand for India itself in films, textbooks, and diplomacy. The backdrop of choice for foreign dignitaries and later for millions of personal photographs. The Bengali poet Rabindranath Tagore had already written a short, much-quoted poem describing the monument as a fixed, eternal expression of sorrow set against the passing of time, a sentiment so widely echoed in the decades since that it now shapes how most visitors are introduced to the building before they ever see it. International recognition followed. In 1983, the Taj Mahal was inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, cited for its outstanding universal value as, in UNESCO's words, a masterpiece that is universally admired. In 2007, it was named one of the new 7 wonders of the world in a global public poll, cementing its status alongside monuments like the Colosseum and Machu Picchu in the popular imagination. Global fame has not spared the Taj Mahal from decay. If anything, it has intensified the pressure on it. Since the 1980s, the monument's greatest enemy has been air pollution. Emissions from nearby factories, refineries, and vehicle traffic in the Agra region have caused the white marble to yellow, a process linked to acid rain and airborne particulate matter settling on its surface. In 1984, environmental lawyer M.C. Mehta filed a petition in India's Supreme Court over the discoloration, launching a decades-long legal battle. The case eventually produced the Taj Trapezium zone rulings of the 1990s, under which the Supreme Court ordered polluting industries around Agra to close or relocate, banned the use of coal and firewood by remaining factories, and prohibited fossil fuel vehicles from operating within the immediate vicinity of the monument. Visitors today must approach by foot, electric bus, or horse-drawn carriage from a distant parking area. The modern threats at a glance: air pollution, sulfur emissions, and particulate matter from regional industry, and traffic causing acid rain, and yellowing of the marble facade. Insect infestation: swarms of chironomid flies breeding in the polluted, stagnant Yamuna River leave green and black excrement stains on the stonework. A shrinking river, reduced water flow in the Yamuna threatens to dry out and rot the wooden platforms that support the monument's foundation. Mass tourism: several million visitors a year create wear on marble floors, walkways, and the platform surrounding the mausoleum itself. Political and religious disputes: recurring claims about the monument's origins have repeatedly drawn it into India's broader cultural and religious debates. A second, stranger threat emerged from the Yamuna River itself. As pollution and reduced water flow allowed the river to stagnate, it became a breeding ground for a mosquito-like insect of the genus Goldichironimus, whose larvae thrive on algae fed by sewage and ash discharged into the water. Swarms of these insects leave behind green and black excrement stains on the marble, particularly on the side of the monument facing the river, disfiguring the delicate floral inlay work. To combat both problems, the ASI has periodically applied mudpack therapy, a thick paste of fuller's earth, multani mitti, a clay traditionally used to clean wool, spread over sections of the marble, left to dry, and then washed away with distilled water. The treatment has been applied roughly every few years since 1994, and while the ASCI describes the results as satisfactory, tour guides and conservationists in Agra have noted that the yellow-green staining tends to return within months, making the cleanup a continuous rather than a one-time effort. A quieter but potentially more serious threat has emerged from beneath the monument itself. The wooden platforms sunk into the riverbed in the 1630s were designed on the assumption that the Yamuna would always run past the site with a steady flow. In recent decades, upstream damming and water extraction have caused the river to shrink dramatically, and in the Agra stretch, to run nearly dry for parts of the year. Engineers and conservationists, including M.C. Mehta, the same lawyer who first raised the pollution issue in the 1980s, have warned that timber deprived of moisture can shrink, crack, and rot, threatening the stability of the platforms above it. Cracks have been reported in walls and arches in recent years, and India's Supreme Court has pushed the ASI and state authorities to address falling groundwater levels and consider engineering solutions, such as a barrage to maintain water levels near the monument, though progress has been slow. Tourism itself has become a pressure of its own. The Taj Mahal now draws several million visitors a year, well over 3 million by recent counts, and considerably more in peak season. And authorities have introduced timed entry slots, visitor caps, separate ticketing for the marble platform itself, and restrictions on how long tourists may linger near the mausoleum, all in an effort to limit wear on the floors and stonework from millions of footsteps a year. The monument has also become entangled in modern political and religious debate, most visibly in Uttar Pradesh, the state where it stands. In 2017, the State Tourism Department, under Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, published a promotional booklet on Uttar Pradesh's attractions that made no mention of the Taj Mahal at all, despite it being the state's single largest source of tourism revenue. The omission drew immediate public criticism, and the ruling party's state legislator Sangeet Sam later described the Taj Mahal as a blot on Indian culture built by rulers who did not represent the nation's true history. Remarks that were widely condemned but were not formally disowned by his party for some time. State officials denied any deliberate exclusion and pointed to continued government spending on the monument's upkeep. But the episode became a widely cited example of how a nearly 400-year-old mausoleum, built by a Muslim dynasty, can sit uneasily within some strands of contemporary Indian political identity. A related, more formal dispute followed a few years later. In 2022, a petition filed with the Allahabad High Court demanded that the ASC open some 22 rooms and cells within the complex that the petitioner claimed were permanently sealed, citing a fringe theory that the Taj Mahal was originally a Hindu temple, sometimes called Tejo Mahalaya, later converted by Shah Jahan. ASI officials responded that the cells in question are not permanently locked, but are periodically opened for routine conservation work, and that no records reviewed over the years have shown any evidence supporting the temple claim. The Allahabad High Court dismissed the petition in May 2022, ruling the question non-justiciable and suggesting the petitioner pursue academic research instead. The Supreme Court of India later declined to revive the case. The debate resurfaced again in 2025 when a Hindi courtroom drama titled The Taj Story, built around a fictional legal challenge to the monument's origins, drew both box office attention and renewed criticism from historians for reviving a theory they consider thoroughly discredited. Its makers maintained the film was a work of fiction rather than a religious claim. But the controversy surrounding it illustrated how a nearly 400-year-old mausoleum can still become a flashpoint in contemporary debates over history and identity. Alongside these very public disputes, quieter technical work continues. Conservation teams monitor the tilt of the four minarets, track hairline cracks in the dome and walls, and have used laser cleaning and non-invasive scanning to assess the marble's condition without further abrading its surface. Much of this monitoring exists specifically because of decades of litigation. Court-mandated committees, expert panels, and Supreme Court oversight have, for better or worse, become as much a part of the Taj Mahal's ongoing story as the original architects and craftsmen once were. From a grieving husband's private commission to a UNESCO World Heritage Site fought over in court and studied by environmental scientists, the Taj Mahal's story is one of extraordinary transformation. It has been a tomb, a fortress of memory, a target for looters, a wartime disguise project, a diplomatic showpiece, and a battleground for pollution control, all while remaining, in the popular imagination, simply the world's most famous monument to love. Its marble has changed color with the seasons, the centuries, and the smog. Its meaning has shifted with every generation that has claimed it, restored it, threatened it, or simply stood in its shadow and looked up. What Shah Jahan built as a private act of mourning for one woman has become something he could never have designed on purpose, a monument that belongs now to the entire world, and one whose survival, 4 centuries on, still depends on the choices of the people who care for it. For all the empires, restorations, wars, and lawsuits that have passed through its story, the Taj Mahal still draws its visitors back to the same simple image that started it all: a husband who lost his wife and built her a tomb so extraordinary that the world has never stopped looking at it.